On that fateful day, my husband Timain initiated divorce proceedings against me, levelling accusations of maternal and wifely inadequacy. He went as far as to demand sole claim to all our possessions and the guardianship of our daughter. However, within the solemnity of the courtroom, an unexpected declaration echoed. It was the voice of my 7-year-old daughter, Zariah, addressing the judge. "Your Honor, may I present something my mother is unaware of?" The judge granted permission. My daughter stepped forward, raised her tablet, and activated the playback. As the video began to stream, an arresting silence descended upon the entire room. Before our story unfolds, kindly share your viewing location in the comments below. Please remember to like and subscribe to support our channel's growth and to ensure you receive more captivating narratives. That particular morning commenced as any other in their household. Nala, clad in her customary attire, had been diligently occupied in the kitchen from the break of dawn. The subtle fragrance of a warm breakfast mingled with the clean scent emanating from the washing machine, humming in the adjoining laundry alcove. Nala moved with practiced quietude, her presence barely disturbing the ambient stillness. Over the years, she had cultivated the art of navigating her own home with the stealth of a shadow, striving to maintain an atmosphere of tranquility for her husband, Timain. At 6 a.m, Timain descended from the upper level. He presented an impeccable appearance. The instant he entered, clad in a freshly ironed shirt, Nala promptly placed a mug of rich black coffee and a steaming breakfast plate before him. Timain sat down and took the mug without acknowledging her presence. "The coffee possesses a slightly bitter note today," Timain commented dryly, his gaze fixed on the display of his mobile device. "I apologize, my dear. I believed I had measured it precisely this time," Nala responded in a subdued tone. Timain offered no reply. He merely pushed the breakfast plate aside and consumed a few spoonfuls in silence. Nyla remained standing near the table, an awkward stillness enveloping her as she awaited further instruction. None was forthcoming. The silence that stretched between them was so profound and frigid, it seemed to congeal the warm vapor rising from the coffee. Nyla could no longer recall the last time they had shared a breakfast marked by shared laughter. It was likely 2 or 3 years prior, around the time Timain began working extended hours and his business excursions grew more prolonged. "Has Zariah awoken?" Timain inquired without lifting his head. "Yes, my dear, she is in the process of showering. She will join us for breakfast shortly," Nala replied. Indeed, and not long after, the gentle sound of footsteps announced her descent down the staircase. Zariah, their 7-year-old daughter, approached them with a cheerful stride, dressed in her crisp private school uniform. Her smile was radiant, a stark contrast to the subdued ambience of the morning. "Good morning, Mommy and Daddy." Zariah offered a kiss to Nayla's cheek before turning to Timain. He finally set his phone down and feigned a faint smile for his daughter. "Good morning, my little princess. Finish your meal. Daddy will escort you to school today." "Oh, I'm going with Daddy," Zariah exclaimed with palpable delight. Neela released a breath of relief. At the very least, in Zariah's presence, Timain made an effort to exhibit warmth. This brief breakfast interlude constituted their sole shared family time. As soon as Zariah concluded her meal, Timain stood abruptly, gathered his briefcase, bestowed a kiss upon Zariah's forehead, and proceeded towards the front exit. As was his custom, he bypassed Neela as if she were entirely absent. There was no farewell, no affectionate gesture, not even a cursory glance. Only the receding roar of his luxury vehicle left Neela in solitary confinement within the expansive silence of their large home. Neela dedicated the remainder of the morning to her established routine, clearing the table, washing the dishes, attending to the laundry, and organizing the living spaces. She executed these tasks with unwavering efficiency. Her persistent aspiration was to maintain the perfection of their home. She harbored the hope that if the house remained impeccably clean, if the meals were consistently delectable, and if she maintained an unobtrusive demeanor, perhaps the former Timmain would eventually resurface. However, that long-lost Timmain seemed to have departed years ago. At midday, Nala proceeded to collect Zariah from school. This was her most cherished part of the day. She reveled in listening to Zariah recount tales of her friends, her art class, or the contents of her lunchbox. "Mommy, today I received 5 gold stars from my teacher. I answered the question correctly." Zariah chirped joyfully, holding her mother's hand. "My goodness, my daughter is so brilliant," Nala responded with genuine admiration, gently pinching her daughter's nose. Upon their arrival home, as Niala assisted Zariah with her footwear, she heard the distinct sound of a motorcycle drawing to a halt outside the main entrance. A courier in uniform called out her name. "Nyla, a parcel for you." Nyla's brow furrowed in puzzlement. She had not placed any orders. She walked to the front door and accepted a substantial, thick brown envelope. There was no indication of the sender, only the insignia of a legal practice embossed in the upper right corner. Niala's heart began to thrum with an unsettling unease. "Who is it, Mommy?" Soraya inquired, having followed her. "I'm not entirely sure, my dear. It's likely just promotional material. Go change your clothes and then we'll have lunch," Nala stated, attempting to maintain a steady tone. Once Zaraya had retreated to her room, Nayla settled onto the sofa in the living area. Her hands trembled slightly as she tore open the envelope. Within lay a considerable assortment of documents. The opening statement on the foremost page caused Nala to gasp for air. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Nala's perception of reality seemed to halt. A ringing sensation filled her ears. She reread the words, desperately hoping her eyes had been mistaken. Plaintiff Timmain, defendant Niala, grounds for the action. The wife has demonstrably failed in the execution of her marital obligations. Nala felt a wave of nausea. Failed. She had consecrated her entire existence to this household. She had relinquished her professional aspirations at Timmain's behest. She had diligently cared for Zariah. She had ensured Timmain's shirts were immaculate each morning. What did he mean by failure? She continued to peruse the subsequent sections. Her vision blurred as she absorbed the demands Timmain was asserting. The stipulations were merciless. Timmain sought not only a divorce but also requested complete custody of Zariah, asserting that Nala was emotionally unstable and unfit to properly rear their child. And most devastatingly, he demanded the entirety of their shared assets, including the residence they inhabited, predicated on the contention that Niala had not made any financial contributions and that all acquisitions were solely the consequence of Timmain's endeavours. Nala collapsed weakly onto the frigid hardwood floor. The papers dispersed around her, revealing the reason for Timmain's protracted coldness over the preceding months. This had been a clandestine scheme, orchestrated behind her back. The front door creaked open. Timmain had returned from his workday unusually early. He stood in the entryway, surveying Nala slumped on the floor and then the scattered documents. His expression was glacial and devoid of any hint of remorse. "My dear, what does this signify?" Nala's voice quivered and tears began to well in her eyes. Timmain removed his shoes in silence. He approached, loosening his tie. He offered no denial, no explanation. He simply stated with chilling detachment, "It is precisely as you have read. I no longer wish to cohabitate with you, Nala. You have fallen short. You have failed as a wife and as a mother." "Failed?" Nyla vocalized in disbelief. "I have managed this household and raised Zariah." Manage the household? Timmain scoffed with palpable disdain. The sole accomplishment you can claim is the expenditure of my funds. Zariah requires a superior maternal figure, one who is competent, not someone prone to perpetual weeping and complaint, as you are. But all the assets, this house and Zariah, my dear, you cannot wrest them from me, Nala cried out in escalating hysterics. Timmain knelt down and regarded her with a piercing gaze filled with a hatred Nala had never before witnessed. I can and I will. My legal counsel possesses all the compiled evidence. You will receive nothing nearly. You will depart this residence without a single cent. Timmain rose and straightened his suit. He glanced towards the staircase, ensuring Zariah remained unaware. And prepare yourself. Timmain offered a chilling smile that sent a shiver of dread through Niala. My attorney asserts that even your own daughter will provide testimony in court regarding your incompetence as a mother. Nala froze in sheer terror, her heart fracturing into countless pieces. Timmain's intentions transcended a mere divorce. He aimed for her utter annihilation. Nala endured a sleepless night. Following their acrimonious exchange, Timmain had retreated to the guest room, securing the door as if Nala posed a physical threat. Nala spent the night in her daughter's room, perched in a chair beside the bed, observing Zariah's tranquil slumber. Her tears flowed unabated. How could Timmain possibly suggest that Zariah would testify against her? Zariah was her entire world. What narrative had they concocted for her young daughter? This thought tormented her more profoundly than any other accusation. The following morning, Timmain resumed his pretense as if no disruption had occurred. He roused Zariah, prepared her uniform, and transported her to school. He refrained from any communication with Nala. When Zariah inquired about her mother's swollen eyes, Timmain responded with disinterest. Mummy isn't feeling particularly well, Princess. After their departure, true apprehension seized Niala. She recognized the imperative to contest. She could not so readily relinquish Zariah. She retrieved her mobile device and searched for the names of prominent divorce attorneys in the city. However, the stark reality soon confronted her. Legal representation necessitated financial resources, an initial retainer, and consultation fees. Nyla realized she possessed no funds. Throughout the preceding years, Timmain had allocated her a monthly stipend, meticulously budgeted for groceries and Zariah's educational expenses. There was no provision for savings. Her sole recourse lay in their joint bank account, which she believed served as their family's emergency reserve. With trembling hands, Nala accessed the banking application on her phone. She entered the password with a hammering heart. Upon observing the displayed balance, Nala felt her legs buckle. 0. The account registered a balance of $0. It was inconceivable. There should have been hundreds of thousands of dollars. Nala repeatedly refreshed the page, hoping for a system malfunction, but the numeral 0 remained staring back at her. She navigated to the transaction history, her eyes widening in sheer horror. Over the preceding 6 months, Timmain had systematically withdrawn substantial sums, transferring them to an unknown account. The final transaction had occurred merely 3 days prior, completely depleting the account's balance. Timmain had orchestrated this. He wasn't merely departing, he had deliberately rendered her financially incapacitated, thereby preventing any form of resistance. Niala wept in utter despair. How could she possibly engage legal counsel without any financial means? She recalled her wedding jewelry. She rushed to her bedroom and opened her jewelry box. It was empty. Only a few imitation baubles remained. Timmain had even appropriated her heirlooms. In her desperation, Nala remembered an old acquaintance who worked for a legal aid organization. She contacted her and, in hushed tones, recounted the predicament. Her friend expressed sympathy, but could offer little assistance beyond providing a name. His name is Attorney Abernathy, her friend stated. He operates a small office on the second floor of an aging strip mall. He's not an expensive attorney, but he is principled and dedicated. Seek him out, explain your situation. Perhaps he can offer some solace. Nala had no alternative. With the meager cash she possessed in her purse, she hailed a taxi and proceeded to the address her friend had provided. Attorney Abernathy's office was precisely as described by her friend. Modest, unassuming, and situated on the second floor of a dilapidated building with peeling paint. Attorney Abernathy, a middle-aged African-American man with thick spectacles and a composed demeanor, listened attentively to Nyala's narrative without interruption, offering occasional nods and making notes. When Nala concluded, Attorney Abernathy exhaled a prolonged sigh. Nyala, this will undoubtedly be an arduous undertaking, he stated in a low voice. Your husband has meticulously prepared for this scenario. His objective extends beyond a mere divorce. He aims to dismantle you. I comprehend, Counselor, but my concern is solely for Zariah. Please assist me. I lack funds presently, but I assure you I will repay you. I will make installment payments. I am willing to do anything, Nyala implored with desperation. Attorney Abernathy regarded her for a moment. Let us defer the financial discussion for the present, Nyala. What is crucial now is our need for swift action. This legal action has already been initiated. We must formulate a response without delay. Attorney Abernathy requested Nala's patience. He exited the room and returned a few minutes later, carrying a folder brimming with photocopies. These were the legal documents T-Main's team had submitted. Your husband's legal representative is Attorney Cromwell. He is reputed for his sharp intellect and his readiness to employ underhanded tactics. Attorney Abernathy stated with firm conviction, Let us examine the evidence they have presented. Nola nodded, her heart pounding intensely. Attorney Abernathy opened the folder. The initial page displayed photographs. Nyala recoiled in shock upon viewing images of her home's interior. Photos depicted an accumulation of dirty dishes in the kitchen, a living room cluttered with toys, and laundry baskets overflowing with soiled garments. But this is unjust, Nyala protested. These are photographs he captured when I was unwell. I endured a severe fever for 3 days, and T-Main offered no assistance whatsoever. He took them deliberately. Nyla, I fear this has been manipulated to portray you as indolent and neglectful of household maintenance, Attorney Abernathy remarked with a grim expression. They proceeded to the subsequent pages. These were credit card statements. Nala observed a ledger detailing charges for designer handbags, jewelry, and opulent restaurant meals, none of which she had personally purchased. That was not me. I did not acquire these items. Did you possess an auxiliary card in your name? Attorney Abernathy inquired. Yes, an additional one. T-Main managed it. He instructed me to utilize it if the need arose, but he frequently requested it back, citing his primary card having exceeded its limit. Merciful heavens, he has ensnared me. Nala felt the world tilting precariously. She realized that every seemingly considerate gesture from T-Main was, in fact, an integral component of his malicious stratagem. And then Attorney Abernathy paused at a substantial document towards the conclusion. And this is the most damaging piece, Nyla. What might it be, Counselor? It is the deposition of an expert witness, a child psychologist. Attorney Abernathy handed the report to Nyla. She began to read. The report was written in stark clinical terminology. It stated that the psychologist had conducted discrete observations of Nyla's interactions with Zariah. The conclusion was that Nyla exhibited emotional instability, neglected her daughter's needs, and posed a detrimental influence on Zariah's psychological development. The report recommended full custody for Timane, citing the child's mental well-being. This is illogical. When was this observation conducted? I have never encountered a psychologist. Nyla's voice trembled uncontrollably. According to this report, the observations were carried out in public venues such as the park, the shopping mall, and during your child's school pickups, Attorney Abernathy explained, fixing his gaze upon her. That is preposterous. Zariah always appeared content in my company. This is slander. Who is this psychologist? Attorney Abernathy turned the cover of the report. Her name is Valencia, a Dr. Valencia, he stated. Here are her credentials. She appears highly professional and credible. Attorney Abernathy looked at Nyala earnestly. Nala, do you know this woman, Valencia? Nyala shook her head, utterly bewildered. Tears welled in her eyes once more. No, counsellor, I do not. I have never encountered her in my life. The reality of cohabiting with the man intent on her ruination constituted a silent torment. Timane had not vacated the premises, he had merely relocated to the guest quarters. The house, once imbued with warmth, now felt like a frozen battleground. With emotional hazards concealed in every recess, Nala was compelled to coexist with her adversary, to greet him each morning, and to maintain a facade of normalcy before Zariah. Timane executed his strategy with flawless precision in Zariah's presence. He presented himself as the quintessential father. He began returning from work earlier than usual, a deviation from his established pattern of months. He presented extravagant gifts. One evening he arrived bearing a sizable box adorned with a cartoon princess motif. This is your new tablet, Zariah, Timane announced exuberantly, embracing the child. It's vastly superior to your old one. It boasts a superior camera, and Daddy has installed numerous games for you. Zariah's eyes sparkled. Wow, thank you, Daddy. Nyala, engaged in folding laundry in the living room, could only swallow with difficulty, her heart aching. She understood Timane's objective. He was actively seeking to secure their daughter's allegiance. Nyala was in no position to compete. She lacked even $1 to procure a gift for Zariah. You see, Princess, Timane remarked, casting a sneering glance at Nala as he activated the new tablet. When you reside with Daddy in the future, you'll be able to acquire new toys weekly, unlike someone who solely knows how to fold garments. Nala ceased her movements, a knot forming in her chest. She longed to unleash a torrent of screams, to hurl insults at Timane, but she restrained herself in Zariah's presence. Any display of anger would only serve to corroborate Timane's assertion of her emotional instability. Thus, she continued folding the clothes in silent compliance, her head bowed, allowing Timane's venom to permeate the atmosphere. The daily ordeal persisted. Timane systematically undermined Nyala's maternal authority. If Nala prepared dinner, Timane would enter the kitchen, sample the fare, and remark in Zariah's earshot, "My dear, the soup is once again a trifle too salty." "It's quite all right. We can order takeout tomorrow." If Nala commenced assisting Zariah with her homework, Timane would interject. "Allow me. The method of instruction employed by your mother is overly convoluted. You are liable to become confused." Nala felt increasingly diminished, virtually invisible within her own home. She began to harbour doubts about herself. Was her cooking truly inadequate? Was she genuinely incapable of instructing her daughter? Timane played his role with such convincing artistry that Nala appeared increasingly inept. Zariah, caught between them, began to exhibit signs of bewilderment. It was evident she loved her mother, yet she also relished the attention and gifts bestowed by her father. At times Zariah clung to Nala as if seeking refuge, but on other occasions she seemed ill at ease. particularly after Timain had whispered something to her. One evening, Nala found herself unable to sleep. She silently approached Zariah's room to ascertain her daughter's well-being. She gently nudged the door ajar. Zariah was slumbering soundly. On her desk rested the new tablet Timain had purchased. However, as Nala moved closer to tuck Zariah in, she noticed something peculiar. Zariah's small hand was clasped around something beneath her pillow. It was not her beloved teddy bear. Nala leaned closer, her heart leaping into her throat. It was Zariah's older tablet, the inexpensive model with a cracked screen in several places, the one Nala had always cautioned her against playing with, fearing the shards of glass might cause injury. Nala's brow furrowed. Why did Zariah still possess this damaged tablet? Why conceal it beneath her pillow when the newer device lay on the desk? Nala could not comprehend. She dismissed it as a child's sentimental attachment to a former plaything. Little did she know that broken tablet held a secret, poised to alter everything. She retreated to her room, her mind even more unsettled. The denouement transpired a few days later. Nala was anticipating Zariah's return from school. She had promised Zariah she would bake her favorite chocolate cake, but an hour had elapsed since dismissal, and Zariah had not arrived. Nala contacted the school. They informed her that Zariah had been collected by Timain. Nala's heart plummeted. Timain had not communicated this to her. She attempted to contact Timain multiple times, but he did not respond. 2 hours passed, 3 hours elapsed. Nala was consumed by worry, pacing restlessly in the living room, tears streaming down her face. It was not until 9 in the evening that she heard Timain's car. Zaya entered laughing, carrying a large bag filled with items from an amusement park. Behind her, Timain walked with a placid expression and a smug grin. "Where have you been, my dear? Why did you take Zariah without informing me? I was consumed by anxiety," Nala exclaimed, her voice laced with tears and fury. "Daddy took me to Wonderland Park, Mummy. It was so much fun," Zariah chirped gleefully. Timain regarded Nala with a cold stare. "So what? I am her father. I have every right to escort my own daughter. Besides, you are not engaged in any productive activity at home." "But you should have informed me." "Why? So you could spoil our enjoyment with your dramatics?" It was at this moment that Nala detected a subtle scent. A delicate yet unknown fragrance clung to Timain's shirt. A scent decidedly not belonging to Nala, nor the usual cologne he favoured. Nala noticed his gaze follow the direction of her own, and she knew he'd registered the perfume. He didn't flinch, though. Instead, a smile played on his lips as he waited for Zariah to retreat to her room with her new treasures. Once they were alone, Timain drew closer to Nayela. His face was inches away, his voice a venomous whisper. "Did you catch that? Did you honestly believe I'd spend my days with a woman as utterly uninspiring as you? You're utterly insignificant compared to her." Nala recoiled, a gasp catching in her throat. So there was another woman. All the accusations, all the drama, had simply been a ploy to clear the way for this other person. "Who is she?" Niala managed to whisper. "None of your concern," Timain spat back. "She's intelligent, accomplished, and knows how to satisfy a man, unlike you." That evening, Zariah padded into Nala's room. "Mommy, why are you weeping?" Nala quickly dabbed at her eyes. "I'm all right, my sweet, just a slight headache." Zariah's gaze, unreadable, fixed on her mother. "Are you truly unwell, Mummy? Daddy says that because you're ill, you're often unhappy and short-tempered. Daddy also said that if I go live with him, you'll be able to rest and recover." Nala's heart fractured. Timain had been systematically poisoning her daughter's young mind, manipulating Zariah into believing that leaving her mother's side was an act of love, a way to help her get better. Nyla pulled Zariah into a tight embrace. "Zariah, darling, listen to me. I'm not sick. I simply love you so very much. I promise I won't get angry again." But the damage was already deeply ingrained. Nala detected a flicker of doubt in her daughter's eyes. Timmain, observing this entire exchange from the shadows of the doorway, offered a contemptuous sneer. He then brushed past Nyala, who stood stunned, and delivered a dismissive pat to his wife's shoulder, a gesture dripping with false sympathy. "Make the most of your time," Timmain murmured into Nyala's ear, his voice laced with mockery. "Soon she won't even want to call you Mum." The mediation session was a grotesque charade. They sat in a cramped, stuffy chamber while the court-appointed mediator attempted to broker a compromise. Attorney Abernathy began, his tone measured. "Timmain, Nyla isn't asking for much. She desires custody of Zariah, or at the very least, joint custody. We are open to discussing the division of assets." Before Abernathy could complete his sentence, Attorney Cromwell, impeccably dressed and exuding an air of expensive privilege, cut him off abruptly. "There is nothing to discuss," Cromwell declared, his voice sharp as he slammed the file he held onto the table. "Our client's position is unequivocal. Nyala is the defaulting party in this marriage, having demonstrably failed in her duties to maintain the household and raise the child. Our client seeks sole custody for Zariah's future well-being." Timmain sat beside him, his expression vacant, as if he were the wronged party. "My sole concern is my daughter's welfare," he intoned with feigned sorrow. "Separating her from her mother is for her own good." Nala trembled. Attorney Cromwell let out a condescending chuckle. "Nala, if you persist with this defiance, we will take this to trial, and I assure you the evidence we possess will utterly humiliate you. The photographs, the credit card statements, the expert testimony, you would be wise to sign this agreement. Our client is being remarkably generous by allowing you to depart this residence without any counterclaim, leave my house with nothing, and without Zariah." "Are you out of your mind?" Nyla cried. The mediator attempted to intercede, but Timmain and his legal counsel remained resolute. The mediation dissolved entirely. As they departed, Attorney Abernathy placed a comforting hand on Nyala's shoulder. "Stay strong, Nyala. The true battle commences now." The initial day of the trial loomed, and a heavy knot had settled in Nala's stomach since dawn. Attorney Abernathy had cautioned her to maintain her composure at all costs. The courtroom presented an imposing and frigid spectacle, its towering wooden panels, heavy furniture, and the judge's authoritative gaze creating an intimidating atmosphere. Timmain, seated across the room, exuded an air of supreme confidence, flanked by Attorney Cromwell. The proceedings commenced with Attorney Cromwell taking the floor. He spoke with a fluid, resonant voice, projecting an aura of assured conviction as he presented his narrative of the events. He displayed photographs of a disheveled home, casting Nyala as an indolent and unkempt homemaker. Credit card statements were then presented, accusing Nala of extravagant spending and financial imprudence. "Your Honour," Attorney Cromwell declared dramatically, while my client, Timmain, dedicated himself to his work and the financial support of this family, his wife remained at home, squandering his earnings and neglecting both her daughter and her household responsibilities. Nala longed to erupt, to denounce it all as fabrication, to expose Timmain's setup, his fraudulent use of the card, his deliberate staging of photographs during her illness, but her hands, clasped beneath the table, were her only outlet. Attorney Abernathy offered a reassuring glance, halting any potential outburst. When Attorney Abernathy's turn arrived, he attempted a rebuttal. He argued that the photographs had been presented out of context and that Timmain himself had utilized the credit card statements. However, his argument seemed to lack conviction. It was Nala's word against the tangible evidence proffered by Attorney Cromwell. The judge meticulously recorded the proceedings, his expression inscrutable. Then came the moment Nala dreaded most. The plaintiff calls his expert witness, Attorney Cromwell announced, Dr. Valencia, a child psychologist. The courtroom door swung open and a woman entered. Nala held her breath. The woman was strikingly beautiful and impeccably elegant, her hair neatly pulled back, adorned in a professional blazer, and walking with an assured stride. She exuded an aura far removed from that of a malicious individual. She appeared utterly convincing. As the woman took her oath, Nala detected the unmistakable scent of the perfume, the very fragrance that had permeated Timane's shirt that fateful night. Nala's heart seized. It was her, Timane's mistress, masquerading as a child psychologist. Valencia took her seat in the witness box, her voice calm and her enunciation precise. She employed psychological jargon that sounded both professional and authoritative. Yes, Your Honour. Valencia began her testimony, responding to Attorney Cromwell's inquiry. Over the past 3 months, I have conducted observational studies of Mrs. Nyala and her daughter Zariah's natural behaviours. And what were your findings, Doctor? Attorney Cromwell prompted. Valencia consulted her notes. My findings were quite alarming. I observed a pattern of behaviour in Mrs. Nyala, indicative of inconsistency and emotional volatility. There are clear signs of significant emotional distress. Valencia proceeded to meticulously detail her observations, transforming mere occurrences into devastating indictments. First observation, she stated, at a shopping mall, Mrs. Nyala forcefully pulled Zariah and spoke to her in a raised voice, causing Zariah to cry out in fear in the presence of others. This suggests a deficiency in emotional regulation. Nala closed her eyes, recalling that day. Zariah had nearly run into the path of an oncoming escalator, and Nala had instinctively shouted and pulled her back in a surge of alarm. Zariah, be careful! She hadn't been angry. She had been terrified for her daughter's safety. Yet Valencia had recast it as verbal abuse. Second observation, Valencia continued. In a park, Mrs. Nyala appeared preoccupied with her mobile phone, seemingly neglecting Zariah, who was playing independently. When Zariah fell, Mrs. Nyala did not notice immediately. Upon realizing her reaction was exaggerated and leaned towards hysteria, which further compounded Zariah's distress regarding the fall. Another fabrication. Nala remembered she had been texting a grocery list Timane had requested. Zariah had simply tripped, and Nala had been genuinely concerned, rushing to her side to comfort her. Her reaction had been that of a worried mother, not a hysterical one. My conclusion, Valencia stated, her gaze steady as she addressed the judge, is that Mrs. Nyala lacks the emotional stability necessary to raise a 7-year-old girl. There are strong indicators of parentification syndrome, wherein Mrs. Nyala subconsciously projects her own personal unhappiness and emotional struggles onto the child. For Zariah's mental well-being, I strongly recommend sole custody be granted to the father, Mr. Timane, who presents as the more stable caregiver. A profound silence enveloped the courtroom. Valencia's testimony was potent, scientifically delivered, and utterly devastating. Neela wept silently. It's a lie, she whispered to Attorney Abernathy. It's all a lie. She's Timane's mistress. It's her. Calm yourself, Nyla, Attorney Abernathy replied, his voice tight with tension. Do not react. That is precisely what they desire. Attorney Abernathy rose for the cross-examination. He tried. Dr. Valencia, are you certain you can render such a grave diagnosis based solely on distant observations? Valencia offered a slight smile. On the contrary, Counsellor, natural observations conducted without the subject's awareness are the most accurate. There is no manipulation involved. It reflects genuine behaviour. You were compensated by Mr. Timane for this testimony, were you not? I was compensated for my professional services, counsellor, not for my conclusions. My conclusions are objective and derived from empirical data, Valencia retorted with practiced adroitness. Attorney Abernathy found himself at an impasse. Valencia had deftly evaded every challenge, meticulously covering all potential loopholes. The trial was adjourned for the day. Nyala departed the courtroom on trembling legs, feeling utterly defeated. She observed Timane offering a subtle nod and a look of satisfaction to Valencia. In the lobby, Nala leaned against the wall, her sobs racking her body. We've lost, counsellor. We've lost. They have everything. Attorney Abernathy remained silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on Timane and Valencia, walking away in the distance, maintaining a discreet but not insurmountable separation. Not yet, Neela, Attorney Abernathy said in a low voice, his eyes narrowing. Something feels amiss. The way she looks at him when she believes herself unobserved is not the gaze of a professional psychologist towards a client. Attorney Abernathy then turned to Niella. We need to uncover her true identity. A few days prior to the next court date, Attorney Abernathy summoned Niella to his office. His face was etched with fatigue, and the stack of documents on his desk seemed to have grown. Nyla, I've attempted to trace the woman's background, Attorney Abernathy stated directly. Nyla's heart pounded. What do you mean, counsellor? Her credentials appear legitimate, almost too legitimate. Attorney Abernathy sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. She is registered with the Psychological Association. She possesses a registered private practice. All documentation is flawless. Either she is a genuine psychologist, whom Timane has hired to lie for monetary gain, or Timane has meticulously fabricated this entire persona. The reality is, we cannot challenge her by alleging she is an imposter. The court would dismiss our claim outright. The glimmer of hope Nyala had clung to vanished instantly. So, we cannot prove she is lying? No, we simply cannot definitively prove she is not a psychologist. Our only recourse is to refute her testimony, and that necessitates you taking the stand, Nyla. Attorney Abernathy met Nyla's gaze with earnestness. You must recount your entire narrative, the photographs, the credit cards, Timane's behaviour, and crucially, you must remain composed. Attorney Cromwell will undoubtedly attempt to provoke you. His objective will be to portray you as hysterical before the judge, precisely as Valencia described. Nyla nodded silently. I will do it, counsellor. I will try my best. The appointed day arrived. It was Nyala's turn to occupy the witness stand. After taking the oath, Attorney Abernathy began with gentle inquiries, guiding Nyala to recount her life as a homemaker. Nyla spoke in a voice that strained to maintain a semblance of calm. She described how she had relinquished her career to dedicate herself to Zoraya's care, detailing her daily routine from dawn until late into the night. Regarding the photographs of the disheveled house, Nyla, can you provide context? Attorney Abernathy asked. Yes, counsellor. Timane took those photographs approximately 2 months ago. I had been severely ill with a high fever for 3 consecutive days. During that period, I could barely leave my bed. I had asked Timane to manage the household chores, but he claimed to be overwhelmed with work, and consequently, the house became quite untidy. I lacked the energy to clean, Nala explained, and concerning the credit card statements, it was an additional card issued in my name, but Timane used it far more frequently. He asserted that his primary card often reached its limit due to business expenditures. I believed him. I never purchased those designer handbags or that jewelry. I was unaware of those transactions until they appeared in the lawsuit documents, Nala stated truthfully. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Some cast sympathetic glances her way, but the judge remained impassive, his expression unreadable. Then came Attorney Cromwell's turn. The shrewd lawyer rose, straightened his tie, and approached the witness stand with a sneer. "Nyala?" he began in a saccharine tone. "So, you are suggesting that your husband, Mr. Timain, a man who diligently works and provides for this family, deliberately set you up? Is that what you're implying?" Nala stammered. "I am not suggesting that. I am merely recounting what transpired." "But it seems that way," Cromwell continued. "The husband takes pictures of a messy house. The husband uses the credit card. It's all the husband's fault. It appears you bear no responsibility whatsoever. Are you perfect?" "Of course I'm not perfect, but I am not a failure." "Not a failure?" Attorney Cromwell scoffed derisively. "Nyala, you claim you were ill when those photographs were taken. Do you possess any medical documentation proving you were incapacitated for 3 days?" Nala remained silent. "I did not go to the hospital. I simply obtained medication from the pharmacy. I believed I would recover. Therefore, there is no proof." Attorney Cromwell seized upon her admission. "It is merely your word against tangible photographic evidence. How fascinating." Attorney Cromwell shifted his focus to the credit cards. "You state your husband used them, yet the card bears your name. Did you ever notify the bank that the card was being misused?" "No." "Did you ever confront your husband about it?" "No." You remained silent. Does this not indicate your negligence and financial irresponsibility? Or does it suggest you tacitly approved all these purchases? "I trusted him. He was my husband." Nyla's voice rose. "Blind trust," snapped Attorney Cromwell. "A trust that led to the ruin of the family's finances, and now you seek to blame your husband." "I am not blaming him." "Enough." Attorney Cromwell raised his hand, returned to his table, and retrieved a large printed photograph. He held it aloft for the judge and the assembled spectators to see. "Your Honor, I request permission to present Exhibit P12. Nyla's eyes widened in horror. It was a photograph of her, taken in her bedroom a few weeks prior to the divorce papers being served, her hair disheveled, captured in the throes of tears and shouting. "Mrs. Nyala, can you explain this photograph?" Attorney Cromwell inquired, his tone triumphant. Nala trembled violently, tears welling anew. "Is this not irrefutable evidence of what Dr. Valencia described? Volatile emotions, hysteria? Is this the countenance of a competent mother?" "You don't understand," Nala wailed, her tears now flowing freely. That night, Timain had just returned home. He called me a useless wife. He said I was a burden. He insulted me. He declared I didn't deserve to be Zariah's mother. He provoked me. "So you admit it," Attorney Cromwell attacked, offering no respite. "You admit to screaming hysterically. You admit to losing control. You are emotionally volatile, precisely as Dr. Valencia diagnosed. Is that not correct?" "No," Nala cried out, rising from her chair. "He set me up. He took that photograph of me in secret after he hurt me. He is a devil." "Enough!" The judge's gavel struck with force. "Witness, calm yourself. Please be seated." Nala sobbed, her shoulders shaking. She slumped back into her chair, utterly broken. She had behaved exactly as Timain and Attorney Cromwell had intended. She had appeared hysterical, unstable, the very image of the failed mother they had meticulously constructed. She glanced towards Timain's side of the room. The man had his head bowed, his face contorted in a feigned grimace of sorrow, as if wounded by his wife's instability. Attorney Cromwell offered a smug smile. The judge slowly shook his head, his expression a clear indication of his settled conviction. That day's proceedings concluded with utter devastation for Nyala's case. Attorney Abernathy attempted to offer solace as they left, but Nayella felt numb. "It's over, counselor," she whispered weakly. That night was the longest of her life. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for the following day. Nala knew she was going to lose. She was going to lose Zariah. She entered Zariah's room. Her daughter was already asleep. Timain was not home, likely celebrating his impending victory with Valencia. Nala sat at the foot of the bed, gently stroking her daughter's hair. Her tears fell silently onto Zariah's cheek, causing the girl to stir slightly. "Mommy!" Zariah's eyes fluttered open, her voice thick with sleep. "Shh, go back to sleep, my darling," Nala whispered, her voice hoarse from weeping. She held her daughter close. "Perhaps this is our last embrace as mother and child. I want you to know, no matter what happens tomorrow, Mommy loves you very, very much. Always." Sensing her mother's profound sadness, Zariah hugged her back tightly. "I love you too, Mummy." Nala slowly released the embrace. It was then she noticed it again. The edge of an old cracked tablet was peeking out from beneath Zariah's pillow. Zariah was clutching it tightly, even in her sleep. Nala couldn't fathom why Zariah was so attached to this broken object. But that night, she was too devastated to contemplate it further. She simply kissed her daughter's forehead and left to face the imminent end of her world. The courtroom felt colder than usual. The morning air was thick and suffocating. Nyla sat rigidly in her seat, her eyes puffy and vacant. She had not slept all night. Beside her, Attorney Abernathy stared straight ahead, his expression somber. He knew he had exhausted every possible avenue, but like Nyala, they had encountered an insurmountable obstacle. The atmosphere on the opposite side of the room was markedly different. Timain appeared refreshed and confident in a new suit, occasionally offering a smile and engaging in hushed exchanges with Attorney Cromwell. Victory was clearly within his grasp. In the gallery, Nala spotted Valencia. The woman sat elegantly, attired in a cream-coloured dress, her gaze fixed on Nala with a subtle, barely perceptible smile, the smile of a victor. The judge entered and an immediate silence descended upon the room. Nala's heart pounded with an almost painful intensity. "In the matter of the divorce petition, registry number, family court case number," the judge began formally. "Today's agenda involves the reading of the verdict. However, prior to that, both parties will be afforded the opportunity to present their closing arguments." Attorney Cromwell rose first, skillfully summarizing his perceived victory. "Your Honour," he stated loudly, "throughout this trial, we have been presented with irrefutable evidence, photographic proof illustrating Mrs. Nyala's neglect of domestic responsibilities, financial documentation demonstrating her imprudence, and most significantly, the testimony of the esteemed child psychologist Dr. Valencia, who objectively and scientifically detailed the defendant's emotional instability." Attorney Cromwell gestured towards Nala. "We even bore witness to Mrs. Nyala's hysterical conduct in this very courtroom during the preceding session, which corroborates Dr. Valencia's diagnosis and is duly recorded." He then turned his attention to Timain. "Conversely, we have Mr. Timain, a capable father, financially successful, and above all, emotionally stable and genuinely invested in his daughter's future. Your Honour, the choice before you is unequivocally clear. This is not about retribution against the wife, but about safeguarding the child. For Zariah's paramount interest, I implore you to grant sole custody to our client, Mr. Timain, and approve his request for the equitable division of assets." Attorney Cromwell resumed his seat with a self-satisfied smile. It was now Attorney Abernathy's turn. He stood slowly, scanning the room without directly addressing the judge. "Your Honour," Attorney Abernathy began, his voice soft yet firm, "what we have witnessed here is not evidence, but rather a calculated character assassination. a meticulously planned defamation. Photographs can deceive. One could capture the world's finest chef's kitchen at an inopportune moment and render it unsightly. Financial statements can be manipulated, particularly when one party wields complete financial control and enjoys the trust of the other. The pronouncement of an expert witness, one who merely observed from a distance and drew sweeping conclusions from isolated snippets of events, carried less weight than the profound maternal affection a mother had nurtured over 7 years. Attorney Abernathy locked eyes with T. Main. "Your Honour," he stated, "we are not striving to rescue a young girl. Instead, we are witnessing a husband driven by avarice, attempting to extricate himself from his wife, seize her possessions, and cruelly deprive her of the sole thing she cherishes most, their daughter. Nala is an exemplary mother." His voice faltered slightly with emotion. "She is not flawless, nor is any mother, but she has devoted her existence to Zariah. I implore you not to permit this meticulously crafted defamation to shatter that sacred bond. Judge with your conscience." Attorney Abernathy resumed his seat. The courtroom fell into a profound silence. His argument had been compelling, imbued with genuine feeling, yet Neela understood it was insufficient. Attorney Abernathy's case rested on conviction. Attorney Cromwell's, however, was built upon tangible proof and expert testimony. In the eyes of the law, the victor appeared unequivocally clear. The judge cleared his throat, adjusted his spectacles, and opened the substantial file before him. This was the pivotal moment. Having thoroughly examined all submissions from both parties, considered all testimony presented, and weighed all evidence, the judge commenced speaking in a tone devoid of emotion, her heart constricted. "The court acknowledges," the judge stated, "that the plaintiff, Mr. T. Main, has succeeded in presenting significant evidence." The judge continued. Nala lowered her gaze and closed her eyes. "Firstly," the judge elaborated, "the visual documentation, specifically the photographs, demonstrably illustrates the defendant's negligence in household management, Mrs. Nyella. Second," the judge continued, "financial records indicate a considerable imbalance in expenditures from the credit card registered in the defendant's name." Each utterance felt like a piercing wound. "And most critically," the judge declared, his voice carrying an air of finality, "is the expert witness testimony from Dr. Valencia concerning Mrs. Nyella's emotional disposition. This testimony has, unfortunately, been corroborated by the defendant's own behavior during the most recent proceedings, presenting the court with a deeply concerning portrayal of the psychological environment for the child's development." Nala's silent tears began to fall. It was over. Temain glanced at Nala, a faint, triumphant smirk playing at the corner of his lips. Behind him, Valencia straightened in her seat, poised for applause. Considering all the aforementioned factors, and most importantly, for the paramount well-being and mental health of the minor, Zariah, the judge declared, raising his gavel. Nyla closed her eyes, steeling herself to hear the pronouncement that would irrevocably alter her life. The court rules. "Stop." The word was soft, yet it sliced through the courtroom's hush with an edge of sharp clarity. Every head swiveled in unison toward the source of the sound. Standing in the slightly ajar doorway at the rear of the room was Zariah. She was alone, still clad in her school uniform. It was evident she had slipped in undetected. Temain's expression shifted abruptly from arrogant confidence to utter shock and dismay. "Zariah, what are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice laced with panic. "Guard Zariah." "Sit down, princess." Temain attempted again, his voice tight with tension, but Zariah remained motionless. She began to walk into the courtroom, the sound of her small footsteps echoing on the polished marble floor. She averted her gaze from her mother, who stood frozen with her mouth agape, and from her father, his face contorted with fury. Her eyes were fixed directly on the judge. The room, which had been suspended in expectant silence awaiting the verdict, was now utterly still. The gavel, poised to descend, hung suspended in mid-air. The judge's eyes widened as he observed the young girl in the doorway. Nala spun around, her heart plummeting into her stomach. "Zariah," she whispered, disbelief colouring her tone. What was her daughter doing here? Who had brought her? Temain reacted with lightning speed. His face, moments before etched with arrogance and triumph, was now pale and ashen. Pure terror flickered in his eyes. "Zariah!" he bellowed, his voice losing its veneer of composure. "What are you doing here? Get out! This is not a playground. God, how did a child gain entry?" Zariah flinched at her father's outburst, but did not retreat. Instead, she advanced further into the room. "Zariah," Daddy said. Temain continued, his voice escalating as he partially rose from his seat. "Turn around and sit down." His attorney Cromwell also appeared visibly disoriented. He stood and addressed the judge. "Your Honor, this constitutes a procedural outrage. This trial is confidential. A minor should not be present, nor should she interrupt these proceedings. I request you instruct your staff to remove the child." Nala remained frozen, a mixture of confusion and dread swirling within her. A part of her mind recoiled at the thought of Zariah being in this grim environment, while another part quivered with apprehension. What would Zariah say? Had Temain succeeded in completely poisoning her mind? Would Zariah declare a preference for her father? The mere contemplation sent a wave of nausea through Nala. "Your Honor, out of consideration," Attorney Abernathy's voice suddenly cut through the air, halting Attorney Cromwell mid-protest. "This child has arrived with a clear intention. This is about her future. We cannot disregard her presence." The judge raised a hand, his expression solemn. "Silence, everyone." His voice resonated through the courtroom. He met Temain's and Attorney Cromwell's gazes, quelling their objections. Then his attention turned to Zariah, his expression softening. Zariah approached deliberately, her small footsteps amplified in the hushed stillness of the marble floor. She stopped in the central space between the opposing counsel's tables, her gaze fixed directly upon the judge, seated upon his elevated bench. "Your Honor," Zariah began, her voice trembling but undeniably clear to everyone present, "I apologize for the interruption." "It is quite all right, Princess," the judge replied, his tone adopting a more paternal warmth. "Why have you come here? Who brought you?" "I came by myself. My aunt brought me, but I slipped away. I overheard my daddy saying my mummy is bad." Temain's eyes widened. "Zariah, watch what you say." "Silence, Mr. Temain," the judge commanded. "Let the child speak." Nala covered her mouth, tears beginning to stream down her face. Zariah took a breath, as if summoning her courage. She looked at the judge once more, her innocent eyes conveying an earnest sincerity. "Daddy said my mummy is bad. Daddy said my mummy gets very angry. Daddy said my mummy can't take care of me," she continued, her voice wavering slightly. Nala closed her eyes, believing this was the final act. Zariah was about to echo all of Temain's falsehoods, but one sentence made Nala's eyes snap open. "But can I show you something?" Zariah asked, her gaze fixed on the judge with a pleading intensity. "Something my mummy doesn't know?" The phrase hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. "Something my mummy doesn't know." Nala frowned, a knot of confusion tightening in her stomach. What could her daughter possibly mean? Attorney Cromwell abruptly stood again. "Your Honor, this is preposterous. A child's recording cannot be admitted as evidence. This constitutes an invasion of privacy, recorded without consent." That recording demonstrably proves the falsity of your expert witness's claims, Attorney Cromwell. Attorney Abernathy retorted sharply. This is highly intriguing. Enough of this bickering. The judge slammed his gavel down, his eyes, moments before warm, now burning with intensity. He sensed a profound deception at play. Clark, please assist this child. Connect that device to the court monitors immediately. No! T. Main shrieked, desperation in his voice. He clutched the edge of the table, his knuckles white. I object, Your Honor. This is a setup. Your objection is noted, Mr. T. Main. Now sit down, the judge ordered sternly. A clerk approached Zariah swiftly and carefully, took the slightly damaged tablet. He located a cable, and moments later, the large monitor screens adorning the courtroom walls flickered from black to display Zariah's tablet's home screen. Timain buried his face in his hands. Valencia, behind him, appeared to be trembling uncontrollably. Zariah, now standing beside the clerk, looked at the screen. She paid no attention to Nala or Timain. Her focus was singular. This one, she declared, pointing to a video file within the gallery. The clerk clicked on it, and a video thumbnail materialized. Proceed, Princess, the judge instructed. Play the video. Zariah extended her small index finger and tapped the play button on the screen. The video began to stream. The large monitor screen flickered, the image slightly unsteady and tilted, as if captured from a concealed vantage point. A soft giggle was audible. That's our living room, Nyala whispered, recognizing the familiar sofa and the large potted plant in the corner of the room. The footage appeared to have been filmed from behind that very plant, where Zariah often concealed herself during games of hide and seek. Then two figures entered the frame, Timain and Valencia. Not Valencia in her professional blazer, as seen in court, but dressed in elegant, comfortable loungewear, her hair unbound. Timain entered laughing and immediately embraced Valencia from behind, pressing kisses to her neck. Oh my God! A collective muffled gasp swept through the room. Niella froze, her breath caught in her throat. So the lingering perfume, her gnawing suspicions, it was all true. The woman who had delivered false testimony to destroy her life was the same one intimately involved with her husband within the confines of her own home. Across the room, Attorney Cromwell stared at the monitor, his jaw slack. He turned to Timain with an expression of profound horror, as if silently questioning, "You never mentioned this." In the gallery, Valencia lowered her head, attempting to conceal her face. Then the voices of the figures in the video became chillingly clear in the courtroom's stark silence. Valencia's voice, "Are you certain your scheme will succeed? Your wife is so utterly foolish." Timain's voice, laced with a confident chuckle, "Foolish and compliant. She'll suspect nothing. All the funds have already been transferred to your account, my dear." "Are you absolutely certain?" Nala felt her legs weaken beneath her. Her money, their joint account, had been siphoned into Valencia's account. "Oh dear Lord," Attorney Abernathy murmured beside her, his gaze fixed on the screen. The video continued. Timain settled onto the sofa, drawing Valencia onto his lap. Timain's voice, "Once the verdict is rendered tomorrow, I will officially gain custody of Zariah. We will sell this wretched house immediately and relocate to Switzerland, far from her." Valencia's voice playful, "And Zariah seems incredibly fond of her mother." This was the segment that struck Nyala with the most profound pain. She held her breath, anticipating Timain's response. Timain's voice, dripping with disdain, "Oh, the child is easily managed. Just present her with a new tablet, and she'll forget her mother. You will become her new mother, a more intelligent, successful, and significantly more alluring mother." Timain passionately kissed Valencia on screen. "Enough! Turn it off!" Timane roared in fury. He lunged from his chair, attempting to rush towards the clerk's table to halt the playback. "Officers, restrain him!" the judge bellowed, his voice echoing with righteous anger. The 2 security guards stationed at the door moved with swift precision, overpowering Timane before he could advance, their grip securing his arms behind his back. Timane thrashed like a trapped animal. "Let me go! It's not true! It's been fabricated!" he screamed, his voice raw with desperation. "Silence him," the judge commanded. "Continue the video. I want to witness it to its conclusion." The video played on, oblivious to the pandemonium erupting within the room. Now it was Valencia's turn to speak. Valencia's voice: "I'm still a little concerned. What about my testimony as a psychologist? What if Nala's lawyer discredits it with his observations?" Timane's voice laced with laughter once more. "I've already prepared for that. I recorded her last week when she was crying hysterically. Remember, I will provoke her again during the trial. I will insult her until she reaches her breaking point. She will scream and weep before the judge." Niella sobbed, recalling her testimony, the photograph, her anguished cries. He had orchestrated it all. Timane's voice: "Once she becomes hysterical, your testimony will appear flawless. The judge will witness firsthand that she is an unstable, erratic woman. No one will believe her. They will believe Dr. Valencia, the professional." The video concluded with Timane and Valencia raising their wine glasses in a toast, laughter echoing. The footage ended and the screen reverted to black. The room remained in stunned silence for several seconds, the only sounds being Nala's sobs and Timane's ragged breaths beneath the guard's firm hold. Every individual in the courtroom, from the judge and clerks to the spectators and even Attorney Cromwell, stared at the darkened screen with a mixture of horror and disbelief. They had just witnessed the unfolding of a meticulously planned, utterly malevolent conspiracy. Fraud, perjury, money laundering, and the deliberate manipulation of the court. In the spectator gallery, murmurs began and heads turned, searching for Valencia. "There she is! It's her!" someone exclaimed. Realizing she was utterly exposed, Valencia bolted from her seat, making a desperate dash for the rear exit. Zariah, the small heroine who had diligently watched the video unfold, turned her head. She did not glance at Timane, now subdued. Her gaze met her mother's, her eyes shining with unshed tears. The judge, his face flushed with palpable rage, raised his gavel high. He did not let it fall silently. Instead, he brought it down with a resounding thud upon the desk. "Silence, everyone. The court will resume." His voice boomed. "Officers, seal all exits. No one is to leave. Arrest that woman, Dr. Valencia, immediately." The courtroom descended into controlled chaos. The sharp crack of the furious judge's gavel served as both a command and a release of the palpable tension that had held everyone captive. The 2 security guards who had just subdued Timane now moved to escort him to a chair. Timane was no longer screaming. He was merely gasping for air. His eyes darted frantically, and his expensive suit was now soaked in sweat. He understood with chilling certainty that it was over. At the rear exit, further commotion ensued. Valencia, in a state of panic, found herself unable to open the large door the judge had just ordered secured. She tugged at the handle and pushed with all her might, but to no avail. A female officer intercepted her swiftly. Valencia crumpled to the floor, her professional facade completely disintegrating. She was no longer the composed and convincing psychologist. She was merely a terrified woman weeping uncontrollably. This was precisely the image she had so strategically employed in her fabricated evidence to incriminate Nala. Karma had arrived, swift and merciless. "Bring her forward," the judge commanded, his voice cold and unforgiving. The officers dragged the sobbing Valencia to the front, seating her on the witness stand, which now felt ominously like the defendant's bench. Across the room, Timane's attorney, Attorney Cromwell, resembled a figure sculpted from melting wax. His face was pale, his tie askew. He no longer met the judge's gaze. Instead, he stared blankly at the towering stack of documents before him, utterly devoid of recourse. His career and reputation had been obliterated in an instant, undone by a video emanating from a child's damaged tablet. He knew he was implicated. While he might not have been privy to the illicit affair, he was undeniably aware of the manufactured photographic evidence and the prearranged testimony designed to frame Nyala. Nyala herself remained seated, observing the unfolding scene as if watching a surreal drama unfold. Her sobs had subsided, replaced by a profound, paralyzing shock. Beside her, Attorney Abernathy offered a gentle pat on her back, but his eyes remained fixed on the judge, poised for the decisive pronouncement. Zariah stood quietly beside the clerk, a beacon of serenity amidst the unfolding storm. Her sole focus was on her mother, as if ensuring her well-being. The judge took a deep breath, smoothing the fabric of his robe. He surveyed Timane, Valencia, and then Attorney Cromwell. "Mr. Timane," the judge began, his voice low yet carrying an unnerving authority. "That video is your daughter's property and was recorded within your own residence. Do you still maintain your assertion that it has been fabricated?" Timane lifted his head, his face a mask of emptiness. She set me up," he stammered, a pathetic final attempt. "That woman Valencia planned everything. She seduced me." Hearing this, Valencia immediately interjected. "Liar! You told me to do it. You promised you would marry me. You told me you would transfer all the money to my account. I did all of this for you." "Silence!" The judge's gavel struck again. "Both of you are equally culpable. Your confessions have already been duly recorded in the court record." The judge turned his attention to Miss Valencia. "You sat upon this stand under oath and provided false testimony. You exploited your professional credentials to devastate a mother's life and to abet a criminal act. You not only violated your professional code of ethics, but committed egregious perjury before this court." The judge then addressed Attorney Cromwell. "And you, Attorney Cromwell, did you know or ought you to have reasonably suspected that the evidence you presented, including this testimony, was false? You actively attempted to provoke the witness during the last trial to conform to your client's fabricated narrative. You have brought disgrace upon this noble profession. I shall petition the Ethics Committee to revoke your law license." Attorney Cromwell bowed his head, rendered speechless. Finally, the judge's gaze fell upon Timane. His stare was so piercing it seemed to flay the man alive. "Mr. Timane, you entered this courtroom demanding justice. You accused your wife of dereliction, branded her as unstable, sought her assets, and, most heinous of all, demanded to separate a child from her mother." The judge lifted Timane's divorce petition file and held it aloft. "Let us review your lawsuit," the judge continued, his voice resonating with controlled fury. "First, the accusation of spousal neglect and household incompetence, proven unequivocally false. The video evidence has conclusively demonstrated your conspiracy to defame her." The judge dramatically tossed a sheet from the file to the floor. "Second, the allegation of the wife's financial irresponsibility and extravagance, proven false. The video serves as a confession that you illicitly transferred funds from your joint account to your mistress's account. This transcends mere defamation. It is outright theft." He discarded the second sheet with force. "Third, the charge of the wife's emotional instability, supported by manufactured expert testimony, proven to be a blatant fabrication." the judge declared the video conclusively proves you conspired to provoke your wife, secretly record her distress, and subsequently present this fabricated evidence to deceive this court. He flung the third sheet aside. Your entire lawsuit, the judge's voice escalated, is a detestable compilation of falsehoods, driven by avarice and adultery. The court hereby dismisses in its entirety the divorce petition filed by Mr. Timain. The gavel struck the desk with a definitive sound, but the judge was not yet finished. He turned his gaze towards Attorney Abernathy and Nala. The court's proceedings will not conclude here. In light of this newly presented irrefutable evidence, the court rules to provide full protection to the victim. 1, the judge announced, raising a single finger. Full and unconditional custody of the minor Zariah is hereby granted to her biological mother, Mrs. Nyla. Nyla gasped, the tears now flowing freely, a testament to immense relief. She looked towards Zariah. 2, the judge continued, Mr. Timain's petition for divorce has been dismissed. However, the court strongly advises Mrs. Nyala to initiate a countersuit forthwith. Mrs. Nyala, do you wish to divorce your husband? Attorney Abernathy whispered. Nyla, her voice trembling yet firm, met Timain's defeated gaze, his head now bowed. Yes, Your Honor, I demand a divorce immediately. Excellent, exclaimed the judge. The court grants Mrs. Nyala a divorce on the grounds of adultery and fraud perpetrated by the husband. Full custody is awarded to Mrs. Nyala. 3, the judge rose to his feet. All assets currently held in the name of Mr. Timain and Ms. Valencia shall be immediately frozen. The court hereby orders a comprehensive investigation to trace all funds unlawfully diverted from Mrs. Nyla. The residence currently occupied by the parties is declared the sole and complete property of Mrs. Nyla and Zariah. And 4, the judge's voice now resonated with authority throughout the courtroom. Based upon the video evidence and the confessions made within these chambers, I order the immediate arrest of Mr. Timain and Ms. Valencia for multiple criminal offences, including conspiracy to commit fraud, perjury, domestic theft, and obstruction of justice in a court of law. Take them into custody. The security guards promptly placed Timain in handcuffs. The man who had entered the courtroom that morning with an air of defiant arrogance was now being led away, his head hung low. He passed Nyala without daring to meet her eyes. Valencia was also handcuffed. Her desperate screams had subsided, leaving behind only a puffy, dishevelled face. She was dragged away, her career and her freedom vanished. Neela remained seated, her body trembling uncontrollably. Attorney Abernathy beamed, a wide smile spreading across his face. We won, Nala. We won. Nala, unable to find her voice, simply stood and walked slowly towards the center of the room. Zariah ran towards her. Nala knelt, embracing her daughter tightly as if holding her savior. She wept into her small shoulders, not tears of sorrow, but the tears of a mother rescued by her diminutive heroine. The repercussions of Judgment Day rippled outward like wildfire. The narrative of the shattered tablet became an international headline. For weeks, the tale of an avaricious husband, a fraudulent therapist, and a 7-year-old heroine captured the attention of the local populace. The initial period following the events was a disorienting blur for Nyala and Zariah, with Attorney Abernathy expertly managing all affairs. By judicial decree, all financial holdings belonging to Timain and Valencia were frozen. The ensuing inquiry revealed that Timain had, over the preceding year, transferred close to $1 million into Valencia's bank account. All these funds were subsequently confiscated and rerouted to Nyala's newly established account. The imposing, frigid residence was now officially Nyala's property. However, Nala found herself unable to reside there any longer, overwhelmed by a surplus of painful recollections and the pervasive spectral presence of Timaine and Valencia in every nook and cranny. With attorney Abernathy's approval, Nyla proceeded to sell the house. The proceeds from this transaction proved more than sufficient to facilitate the commencement of a fresh chapter in their lives. The retribution meted out to the wrongdoers was both swift and severe. Given the irrefutable body of evidence, Tumaine received a sentence of 12 years in confinement for his transgressions of fraud, theft, and perjury. Valencia, whose psychologist credentials, though legitimate, had been exploited for criminal purposes, was sentenced to 8 years, and her professional license was permanently rescinded. The conniving legal counsel Cromwell was immediately stripped of his license by the Ethics Committee and faced criminal prosecution for his complicity in the scheme. Justice, it seemed, had been fully served. 3 months after that pivotal day of judgment, the joyous sound of children's laughter echoed through a small verdant park. Nala, her face finally free from the burden of anxiety, watched Zariah on the swings with a contented smile. They had relocated not to a grand mansion, but to a modest yet comfortable 3-bedroom apartment. The dwelling was adorned with numerous photographs of the two of them and carried the warm aroma of freshly baked cookies prepared by Nala. Nala had established a small home-based catering enterprise. Her culinary talents, which Tumaine had consistently disparaged, were now widely lauded. Orders were steadily arriving, and despite her demanding schedule, which left her both busy and weary, she was undeniably happy. She was finally independent. "Mommy, look!" Zariah exclaimed, running towards Nala, who was seated on a park bench. Her hands were playfully smudged with soil. "The flowers are going to bloom soon." Nala smiled, gently stroking Zariah's short hair. "Wow, my daughter is very skilled at planting things." They sat together for a while, basking in the warmth of the afternoon sun. A question lingered in Nyala's mind, one she hadn't yet had the opportune moment to calmly address. "Princess," Nyala began softly, "may I ask you something?" "What is it, Mommy?" Zariah inquired, her clear eyes fixed on her mother. "The video on the old tablet. Why? Why did you record it?" Zariah remained silent for a brief spell, as if retrieving a memory. "Because I didn't like Auntie Valencia. Why didn't you like her?" "Auntie Valencia pretended to be nice. She smiled at Mommy and spoke to you at the mall. But when Mommy went to the restroom, she told Daddy, 'Your wife takes too long.' And in the park, too. She saw me, but she told Daddy that Mommy wasn't watching me, but Mommy was watching me." Nala was astonished. Her young daughter possessed a remarkably keen observational ability. "And that night," Zariah continued, "Daddy said he was working late, but I heard his car return. I wanted to show Daddy my new drawing, but when I went downstairs, I saw Daddy enter with Auntie Valencia. Daddy hugged her right away. I got scared, so I hid behind the flower pot. So I recorded it there. Yes, I used the old tablet to record. I remembered Mommy said that if there are bad people, there must be proof, and I had the old tablet with me." Nala's heart swelled with emotion. She had completely forgotten she had uttered those words. But Princess then posed another question to Nyla. This was, in her daughter's estimation, the most crucial inquiry. "Why didn't you tell Mommy? Why did you keep it a secret?" Zariah paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Daddy said Mommy shouldn't know." Nala's brow furrowed. "Daddy told you that?" "Yes, in the video, Daddy told Auntie Valencia. My wife is stupid. She won't know." Zariah thought it was a major secret because Daddy said Mommy shouldn't know, so I kept it. I didn't want Daddy to get mad if Mommy found out. It was the unadulterated logic of a child. She had inadvertently compounded her father's criminal act, yet she had maintained secrecy because her own father had explicitly instructed her that her mother was to remain unaware. So why did you show it in court? Because the judge was going to take Zariah away from Mommy. Daddy said Mommy was bad. And Auntie Valencia also said Mommy was bad, and that's not true. Tears welled up in Zariah's eyes. I don't want to be separated from Mommy. Mommy isn't bad. Mommy is the best mum. So I had to show the judge that Daddy and Auntie Valencia are the bad ones. Nala could no longer restrain herself. She embraced Zariah tightly, tears of profound joy streaming down her face. All this time she had endured Timane's accusations of being a negligent mother, questioning her own capabilities and feeling utterly defeated. Yet here stood the most compelling testament that she had not failed. She had raised an extraordinary daughter, a child of pure heart and sharp intellect, capable of discerning truth from falsehood, a brave little girl who possessed the fortitude to act independently to safeguard her mother, a child with an innate sense of justice. "Thank you, Princess," Nyala whispered into her daughter's hair. "Thank you for saving me." Zariah hugged her back. "I love you, Mommy." "I love you too, Zariah." Nala released the embrace and gazed at her daughter's radiant face. Finally, she understood. She had never faltered. She had merely been nurturing a heroine, and now both were liberated, poised for a fresh beginning. Did you enjoy the narrative, and from which city are you listening? Let's connect in the comments section. If the story resonated with you, your support through a super thanks would be greatly appreciated, enabling me to continue bringing you similar tales. Thank you sincerely for your wonderful support. I eagerly anticipate your thoughts on this story. On your screen, you can discover 2 other life stories that I wholeheartedly recommend. My channel features a wealth of additional content. Please remember to subscribe. Until our next life story, with affection and respect.